Oh, obviously, if you don't consent to
We'll see afterwards. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Being a member of NATO brings a country actually a lot of protection in the sense that, first of all, when it's being attacked by another country, other not NATO members are going to protect him and generally make it just easier to get supplies of weapons because the country which sells you know that you are generally going to be on their side. We think that Turkey, first of all, is just a country which is I would call it adventurous and quite aggressive, and just tend to create conflict that the West doesn't want to include itself at. And secondly, we just think it's a bad actor that we don't think that Western country should generally help. So I would start with my first point. I think that Turkey is just a country which tends to insert itself into a conflict that the West isn't interested to be at, and we think that giving more soldiers which are very likely to die in conflicts is just a very bad idea, which will make many people die. What do I mean by the aggression of Turkey? I mean the fact that in Syria today, many part of it is being captured by the opposition is actually being held on Turkish military law. The fact that it still holds a lot of places which has a serious resistance of Kurdish people. The fact that when Qatar was almost being attacked by Saudi Arabia, they said that they will take the side of Qatar, and if Saudi Arabia will invade, they will actually send troops there to fight. We think that all of those past behavior, and the fact that we know that Erdogan is their president, and he's known to be generally just an aggressive leader which is trying to get elected under this strongman. I know. Just a second. Under this strongman image means that he's just going to make more aggressive decisions that are very likely to send to create escalation that you don't want to get into. Yes.
If Turkey is as aggressive as you say, it's better they're under the control of NATO than siding with other worse actors for military assistance like Russia and China.
Okay. I think that this is. We'll answer it in a second. The point is that we do see that under the status quo in the last 10 years, Turkey was under all of those influence that OO wanted to speak about and still behave in a very aggressive way. And we think it was a pure luck that it didn't explode in our face in the extent that we are afraid of. The extent we are afraid of is really the fact that when a NATO member do something, it's pretty much a declaration of the Third World War that we are trying to avoid, because all the Western countries have to help. If a big enough actor from the other axis is going to be involved, then it is very likely to get into a very serious conflict, and we think that it means that really a lot of people will die and will send the world into another decade of instability, huge poverty and big disadvantages. Quick real response to what been said earlier. We think that in the case of in the case of democratic country, we can at least influence countries by saying that in both soft power tools. But in the case of Turkey, even if they're generally a democratic election, the fact that Erdogan have no actual checks and balances, and the fact that during each time he actually is in rule, he can practically do whatever he wants, means that there is 5 years when the West cannot intervene in any other way, and we cannot trust on the fact that Turkey will not do very bad things. I will move to my second argument. Why do you think it's just generally Turkey is just generally a bad actor, and we prefer to have a weaker military force? So we think that Turkey is actually engaging in few military activities that we as the West we generally just shouldn't help. First of all, they're all. The whole fight with of Kurdish people in their country. The fact that there's roughly 20 million Kurdish people which don't want to live under Turkey's regime. There are also all the time instabilities, and the fact that they have a lot of weapon support just practically means that the extent on which they care about creating issues is very, very small. We think that in this sense, even if it will not affect outside outside world, we just generally should not help them and shouldn't take any side in this conflict at least. We think that the fact that they have very strong military just usually help them to do whatever they want, which could be very bad. We think that the general support on radical Islam parts, the fact we think that in this example of Qatar, we think that they generally they have this common interest that many times which are in many times it's really anti-Western, and we think that in this sense they are just very likely to support actors that, which are bad. I think that in this whole situation with Greece, we clearly prefer that they will have weaker military force. They will be more determined to actually make to make territorial claims on places. So the general just a second. So the general conflict on territory is going to be smaller. We think that we'll take it quick.
You lose your own metric because without NATO, there is a greater incentive to grow their own army because they don't have that protection.
Okay, I think that there is few points with that. Firstly, I would say that Turkey is just not that rich country. It can allow to expand its army without any boundaries. We think it is something which helps them in the pocket a lot. Secondly, the ability to get weapons from the West is something which is extremely crucial for Turkey in order to do that. Thirdly, Turkey have actually a very serious problem with both Iran and with Russia. We think that their ability to go with the other side is just non-existing. The fact that they are practically fighting with the Iranian inside Syria all the time, and this means that they cannot ally with them at all. They have also a big fear from Russia, and they technically cannot be their allies, and this is a very big issue. We think that exactly because it's a country which is surrounded with a lot of countries which has conflict with, we just should, we think that the best way to create regional stability is by making them a weaker actor, which will force them to be just generally less radical and to engage in less military operation, which will hurt everyone. From all of those reasons, happy to be OG.
Three, two, one. The biggest problem with the case we just heard from the opening opposition is that they never explain how the fact that Turkey is a member of NATO allows the West to checks and balance it. In fact, NATO has nothing in its constitution that allows it to tell a country, you're not allowed to attack here, you have to follow this military policy, you can't do this because we don't like you to do this. It only has that you need to protect the country in case it's attacked, and it also has the symmetrical obligation to protect you when you are attacked, and sharing of military information, etc. The West doesn't get to tell Turkey what to do just because it is a part of NATO. If it were the case, it would be great, but that's just not how NATO works. So I'm going to talk about the opening of opposition case and explain why their impacts are very minuscule. Then I'm going to talk about how Turkey actually uses the membership of NATO to, invoke expansionist and aggressive policy under the support and backing of the West, and we don't want that to happen. Then I'm talk about why principally it's illegitimate to let an illiberal regime be part of NATO that the West protects in this way. So let's talk about, first of all, opening opposition, more direct refutation. They say after they kick Iran out of NATO, they're going to have more incentive to develop their military. It's great that they have an incentive. I have an incentive to be a billionaire. Cool. But I don't have the means to be a billionaire. Roee tells you that if you drop them out of NATO, they lose access to US military weapons. They lose access to all of the trade that goes on in Europe, etc. And therefore, they have a much less ability to develop. Maybe they have a lot of soldiers, But militaries and wars today are won on technology. And the US and the West still has the best military technology, whether it's fighter jets, bombs, nuclear weapons, etc., in the entire world. And it's not possible for them to just, get them on their own. They don't have the industry to develop it on their own. And even if they had, it's going to be way less inferior to that the West can provide. And I also think that incentive is symmetrical. But if they claim they have more incentive on our side, it's okay. Then they tell you, if we leave, if we kick them out, then instead they're going to ally themselves with Russia or China. Let's begin by tackling Russia. I'm sure they can want to ally with Russia, but it's not possible under the current geopolitical thing that happens. Why? Because Russia is already allied with Iran within Syria, and Turkey also has troops within Syria, are the exact opposition to that group of geopolitical interests in that. In fact, the conflict between Iran and Russia that are already allied is mostly about conflicts in the Muslim world of Shia versus Sunni. That is a religious conflict. Even if they had a strategic interest to ally themselves with one another, they are not able to due to religious conflicts and differences. So it's fine that they want to ally themselves with Russia. They're not able to under the current geopolitical situation, and that thing is unlikely to ever change. This has been the widest, the biggest conflict in the Muslim world since the creation of Islam itself. Then they say, they should ally themselves with China. In fact, they're already allied with China. Membership with NATO doesn't stop them being allied with China, but it actually doesn't really help, right? Because it's a different region of the world. China is mostly operating in the West something sea, I don't remember exactly, and that one is in the Middle East. They have no, military cooperation right there, and then I don't know why alliances with China are going to help. Then the last thing they say is that, this leaving them, kicking them out is going to weaken NATO because Turkey is so important to NATO's power because they have the second biggest military in NATO, which is fine, but still, even if they have the second biggest military in NATO, because there are so many countries in NATO, the military size is still negligible compared to the entire size of NATO, so it's not a meaningful difference. And when they say Turkey has intelligence, it has a unique geographical position, other countries also have this unique geographical position and the ability to provide intelligence on the region. Israel, which is an ally of the West, also provides massive amounts of intelligence on that entire region. You have other areas and bases that are closer. In fact, American bases are already in Syria. There's no reason for Turkey for us to need Turkey there, etc., etc. We don't actually need them. Maybe it's going to be a hit. I can concede to that, but it's not a big hit. Let's talk about why we are actually using the West. They're actually using the backing of the West to invoke aggressive and expansionist policy. I think that the problem that once a country is a member of NATO, then other countries or actors are incredibly scared to attack it or to resist anything it's doing, because it knows that once it will do it, the entire wrath of the entire NATO will have to stand against it. Which means that other countries that may be in opposition to Turkey are unable to act. It means that the Kurds are much less able to act because they're afraid that NATO will have to come there. It means that in Syria they get to do whatever they want without any checks and balances. It means that they can expand to Iraq and all of the other neighboring states. It also means that notice that Turkey also has some border conflicts with Greece, which is also in NATO. But when they are both in NATO cannot pick a side when they have border conflicts. Whereas if we kick Turkey out, we're able to defend Greek in the border conflicts and not allow Turkey to take over more areas there. So what happens is that basically there's backing from the West to do expansionist an imperialistic policy, and we just don't think it's a good thing. We'd rather it vanish from the world, and which is something they have to stand for when Turkey is part of NATO. I'll take closing.
We explain that it would be crucial to Ukraine and Russian border. We need some presence in the Black Sea.
Some presence in the Black Sea. We can have presence in the Black Sea without Turkey. I don't know why we need it. I'd love to hear your extension later and be open to it. Let's talk about why it's actually principally illegitimate to support Turkey. So we told you that Turkey, apart from all of the expansionist policies it does, is a very illiberal regime. Both in terms of it's practically a dictatorship nowadays, even though it's technically a democracy, like Russia is technically a democracy, it's actually practically a dictatorship, and there's very little political leeway there. It's incredibly patriarchal society and incredibly discriminatory with women. There is actually no legal rights for the LGBTQ, and they are prosecuted under Turkish law. And there is oppression of the Kurdish people inside its border that happened today. So we think that by the very virtue of it being an illiberal regime, it's not legitimate for it to be supported directly so by the West. Because not specifically supported by NATO means that the West is obligated to send and sacrifice Western soldiers' lives in order to protect Turkey if needed. And we think that there has to be an incredibly high bar to justify sacrificing the lives of soldiers for doing it. We think that, for instance, even though they consented to be soldiers, it doesn't mean that you can do whatever they want with them. We think it would be illegitimate to send the soldiers for obvious suicide missions. We think that the bar in order to sacrifice the life needs to be very high. For instance, for defending human rights, and even that bar is often not high enough. We didn't send soldiers for Ukraine. So we think that in this instance, not only are you protecting something that is not worth protecting, you're actually protecting something that is actively bad, and you're sacrificing Western soldiers for an ideal that we think is morally apprehensive, and it's not legitimate to sacrifice their lives for it. And we think for all of these reasons, Turkey must be kicked out of NATO.
I think you're very communist from the speech, and I will need that we leader opposition. Yeah.
Okay. First, I would like to start that with an extra point here, an extra argument that is, with all this interruption of Turkish memberships or of Turkey in other countries, the Turkish politics against other countries for invading them is against NATO's policy, since it's invading them and holds illegally land that it's not owns on her, like Cyprus and Syria, having their puppet states that are illegal and de facto states that no one of them legalizes them, like Greece and other Balkan countries. They do not legalize them. This leads to instability in the Middle East area, and that's the most important factor that we give the basis on. What means stability? Stability means to not have everything for granted in an area, and leads to cases that could be close to a war. We have to think that in countries that live people, and when people realize that they are threatened from Turkey's policies, attacking and war-making policy, they will probably, and we already see that in many countries like Greece, that will have mass protesting campaigns, and that will also lead to anarchy, and in elections we will see nationalist parties gaining power. This all will lead to a case where NATO will lose some countries from that they are in its organization, since this atmosphere that the national parties gain in this country will lead the countries to get out from there and choose their own way to lead and do their own area. Also, we would like to add that in case of a war, like for example, the Turkey will be attacked by a country like Iran or Saudi Arabia, some countries will refuse to help Turkey, going against to NATO policy, which tells that we must help the countries that they are attacked by other. We have to help our member countries when, in case they are attacked by other countries, and this will happen since the Turkey have threatened the countries and created crisis in their countries, like in the created crisis in the countries in when they have peace, like in Greece 2 summers before, or Bulgaria or Israel in the past. So this will lead to further instability and possibly to war, because when the countries are really opponent to countries like Turkey, they not only they will not provide their help, but they would probably want to stay away, and when they threaten them again, will maybe cause them to attack them. So this will lead to another crisis that NATO totally will not want it. Yes, I will answer.
When Turkey is not a member of NATO, they have no reasons to do any more political negotiations with members of the West. It means you lose the ability to reason with them and stop them from doing the worst of things and causing the most bad instabilities you talk about.
No, Turkey is totally with its own politics against NATO, and it's causing with the way that it behaves the way that behaves in other countries more insecurity in the whole area, like Middle East. So this totally is truly bad conclusion. I would also like to add that since the establishment of the Turkish democracy back in 1923, the country constantly suppresses minorities through pogroms, high taxation, or even imprisonment. So that since Turkey is supposed to be a democracy, these politics go against its own laws, and of course are far beyond what characterizes a democratic country. They suppressed now Kurdish, or in the past the Greeks or Armenians. So this will lead the country all over to have bad relations with their neighbor countries, and we don't, for sure, will not provide peace in the whole area in Mediterranean or Middle East. So NATO's membership in Turkey's membership in NATO is totally not for granted, since Turkey continues to provide these policies. That's what we want to say from close government.
All right, thank you for that fine speech. Now welcoming member of opposition. You're here.
Okay, are you ready now? Great, I will start my speech here. 3, 2, 1. In the status quo, Turkey is a major player in so many fronts. We will explain you how we can tame Turkey. Now we are controlling the status quo as NATO. And this is how we are actually going to solve the problem in the first house that didn't really explain how you can actually control Turkey. So let's talk about quick points of framing. First of all, we are talking about how NATO is a big organization of many countries. But let's be exactly clear. There is one major country who is providing most of the value for its money, who providing most of the force, who providing most of the weapon. This is the United States. That means the United States have a major power, have a major economical defense, and it's actually, and NATO actually been Turkey was part of NATO for years and years. That means most of the Turkish army is already based on American technology. That means this is necessary just to maintain to the Turkish army, because if they doesn't get the repair part, they will need to switch their ammo from 760 to 55 millimeters to 767. All these things can actually harm the major Turkish army in the status quo. We also see how Turkey tried to push out Sweden from joining NATO. The only reason that actually permitted because the United States withhold the delivery of F-35. That means America actually have huge control over Turkey and actually can provide and tame it from doing some things. Second thing that is important, we need to understand Turkey is a magical economical crisis. From the time that Erdogan decided just to fire the head of bank, they're going drastically well better in the economy. Like the inflation there is crazy. That means they need constant partner, important partner. The only way and only gatekeep to actually joining these unions, the European Union and other places, is actually being a good player in the security side. Because I will explain you why this is such an important actor and why they actually believe that they can actually go in there and it's good for them. So let's explain why we think we can actually tame it itself. First of all, we believe that Turkey trying to be not a global country controlling, they want to control the area of the Middle East. They want to be prideful, the area of the Ottoman Empire. They have the idea behind itself just to control that area. That means that they're trying to provide a global powership. They don't just control this area. The United States is the most strong actor than any other country itself. Like Russian army cannot even conquer Ukraine. I think if US was in Ukraine, it's probably been over by Wednesday. Second mechanism that I think about it. They wanted to join the European Union, and third thing, they're getting most of the ammunition from the United States. That means actively losing United States now, you actually can cripple their army in the status quo. Why we think this is very bad for the country itself? First of all, let's talk about Ukraine. The Black Sea, the major country that are controlling now the Black Sea, and second largest navy in the world is Turkish army. That means, or fourth. This means most of the, wait, you didn't say it, most of the area that you can deliver these places to a humanitarian aid and actually maintain the Russian forces from joining and having total navy domination. And it's very important because it's a crucial place that you can deliver weapons, deliver humanitarian aid, deliver food, and actually limit the Russian forces to getting this idea. Because we need to understand, each war, it's important you will get food for many fronts because it's very hard to deliver food from, for example, when you're fighting in the Ukrainian front, or actually near the Black Sea, from Poland, the only way. That means Russian can actually hunt it and target this thing, and they're actively targeting it. It's much more easier to deliver in small point. Second thing, Russia actually afraid for them actively. They understand, they want to get to their side, they want to be actively helpful for them, and they know it can create a much more major attack to attack them. This is why they fight from them. Second thing, we believe that the idea that they're holding areas in Syrian war, let's explain, this is places who are actually safe haven for people who are fighting this war. That means that only areas that are actually being controlled and can actually huge migration centers and actually help people to survive. Well, we need to understand that most of the immigrants who run from the Syrian war run because the Turkish have some kind of interest to protect those people. This is why we see most of the people who actually run away from Syria are today in the status quo are part of Turkey. If Turkey will be weaker economically and weaker morale, they will not actually permit any more people to run away from the Syrian war and don't have a safe spot that people will be protected. That means already an impact of huge people who will lose their life because Turkey without his army power and without the idea to maintain some kind of area it's actually causing to direct deaths of those people and actually they are going to activate. Yes.
The problem with your analysis is that Turkey still has an interest against Russia because of what happens with Russia being allied with Iran. But also, America also has warships in the Black Sea. Why specifically the Turkish warships are...
The only reason that America has Black Sea in Turkey because US actively paying for these ships and actively saving them. When you actually have the largest navy in the world, it can much more easier to just annexate it. Turkey has most of the power in the Black Sea besides Russia. The United States, even if they want, they cannot really stop them. They don't have any legitimacy to stop them actively over the water. Because we need to understand, this is the water of the Turkish people. This is the Black Sea. This is the area that's controlled by them. The United States cannot really do whatever it wants. And other major countries are not for. Third thing, an important one, I don't talk about the Middle East. We talk also about China. No, we're talking about Middle East. We believe that it's negotiation and conflicts. We believe in the status quo. Negotiation is crucial. That we talked about. They talked about how conflicts between Russia, conflicts between Syria, conflict. This country is one of the major access points of this area. That means it's a crucial player to mediate any kind of conflict in the Middle East. We have countries like Iran, Saudi Arabia, Israel and Turkey. And those countries can actually promote and actively help other countries to get out of conflicts in the status quo. That means when you don't have Turkey on your side, it means you have three countries who are actively will try to make this area and control it more than themselves. When we understand that in the status quo, yes, Turkey trying to be a major player, but it's need actively to play two fronts. Because we are the only team that actually prove you why the Turkish people actually need economically and and how we can actually tame them. That means we are getting the opening government all impacts about okay, we can tame the East. Opposition's points are not really falling down here because when we are actively limiting their power, when we are actively can actually tame them and control them, that means we are getting some kind of positive impacts. And also we need to understand in the status quo there are major things that Turkey is doing for NATO. And when we are going to have less control in NATO, it's going to cause suffering there. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, CEO member, for that fine speech. Now welcome to government with your here.
Just a moment to set my timer. Okay, I'm gonna do a summary of this debate, and then I'm gonna make it more clear to you why Dimitris bring you the most valuable extension in this debate and why we win. But first of all, I'm gonna do a quick rebuttal. Yes, you said, and they said before that with Turkey and NATO we have the more power in the Black Sea. But why we care about it? If we are in NATO and other countries are in NATO too, and we don't have any country in the Black Sea, why we care about who have the power in the Black Sea and who not? We don't care. Second, you said about that Turkey has already a crisis inside. Yes, and that's why in the countries that have already a crisis inside, it's more easy people protesting about sending weapons and sending money to NATO and not to health or education. And yes. So, yes, also to make it clear, we don't care if other countries, Russia or China, violate this NATO's agreement too. We are speaking about Turkey in this debate. If other countries violate it too, they have leave too, but this debate is about that. Yes, I think it was quite enough the rebuttal from the OG to the OO, and so I'm not gonna analyze it. I'm gonna tell you that Dimitris said to you about the main stakeholder in this debate. He said to you about the people of the countries that participate in NATO. And these people are gonna be very mad about it, that we support a country that invalid in another country, and so they are gonna protest. And you are gonna tell me this is fine, yes, we want people to protest, yes, I agree, but if many people from other countries in NATO protest, they are gonna eventually, except for all the countries will have an inside crisis, they're gonna leave NATO eventually. And this will be a power without any power, because no one will be inside NATO in a second. So yes, we think that's important. Um, yes, I want basically to do some summary also, because I didn't do. The OO said to us, we still gonna have aggression if we put Turkey outside NATO. But yes, yes, of course. But we try to do the best we can. I mean, we put Turkey outside of the NATO. We are not gonna found this country anymore. So yes, we don't care if this country will continue suppress human rights, but we are not gonna support it, and this is something important. I'm gonna take closing.
The NATO Union is actively United States aiding other countries. We believe no matter what, America will actively try to protect other countries, and this is why NATO will be strong either way.
Yes, we don't believe it because America are gonna support other countries, but if these countries are gonna have this inside crisis, the local leaders they must put the country outside NATO. Otherwise, they're gonna have a catastrophe inside the country. They are not gonna. They have an inside crack that's gonna get bigger and bigger. So yes, I want also to say that, like Dimitris said before, that NATO's policy is about protecting the country if another country will invade in this country, not to support the country to invade in other countries too. And that's something we didn't hear from OO and OG also. But yes, so this is something, I think it's clear if someone violates the agreement of something or no. They have to leave. Otherwise, there's gonna be a crisis in the other people that support NATO. Yes. Yes, so the other thing that Dimitris said to you is that this way will ensure that there will be peace in the countries in general, because they are not gonna be internal conflict and maybe external conflict. If one internal conflict keeps getting bigger and bigger, it's gonna be external conflict. Eventually. So we want to ensure peace. So how do we do that? If we put the one that keep suppressing the human rights outside one organization, because I guess in this debate we want to keep NATO as a power. Thank you.
Thank you, Roee, for that fine speech. Welcoming opposition with us the last one.
Okay, I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so we heard from opposition a lot about the Okay, we heard about how Turkey doesn't respect human rights, how it's like a really bad player in the global countries, and why we shouldn't support it on a moral basis. But what we showed you is that Turkey actively helps human rights around the world by being a place of a sanctuary for refugees from mostly Syria, but also other countries from the Middle East. How Turkey is a very important point for refugees when they come to Europe. A lot of refugees are there waiting to continue to other European countries, or even stay there until they can go back to their countries. So by keeping Turkey, I'll say it later, by keeping Turkey in a good economic situation, and by helping them with their with their security needs, and with weapons and everything, we actually help refugees be in a country safe and not in a war zone back in their home. So the human rights inside Turkey, I think in the end, being not in a war zone, not in what's happening in Syria, is more important than living in not so democracy. Right now, Turkey is still a democracy. Yeah, there are minorities that are hurt from Erdogan's regime, but in the end, there are elections. Even Erdogan is now a little bit going down in his elections. He lost in how do you say, like elections in the city, in Ankara. So in the end, Erdogan can lose his powers. It's not a dictatorship like other countries. So Erdogan is not a very important player in this game. Turkey still helps refugees and helps human rights, even if it's not the perfect country. So that's the first thing. Second, the Black Sea is a very important place for NATO because it is close to Ukraine. It's a really important spot for weapon deliveries to Ukraine. It's actually what keeps Ukraine alive in the war against Russia and stops Russia from completely conquering it. So it is a very important, and Ukraine is very important for NATO in general because Ukraine actually stops Russia from continuing over to other countries in Eastern Europe, like Poland, a lot of countries that are also susceptible to Russia's conquering. So Ukraine and the Black Sea are very important for NATO, and that is why we need to have these ships inside the Black Sea, and we need to have Turkey's permission to put these warships inside the Black Sea, because if Turkey is not going to be with NATO, like it was pretty established by opposition side, then it will probably go to forces like China, to more like Russia, to the Russia side, and then it won't let the US ships go to the Black Sea. I will take opening.
Yes. We don't suggest sanction Turkey or cut any connection. If Turkish army is so reliant on American spare parts, as UN themselves concede, they will still have to be under some American pressure to not put a complete blockade and not allow any American to work, and they will be able to be much more pressured exactly because of that.
Okay, but if Turkey is not with NATO, it will probably be with China, because right now, Turkey is on NATO side, but it does have economical connections with China. China can bring the money. China is also a very powerful player and is not completely in line with Russia. So even if Russia and Iran are in this together, then still China can give the money and stop and help Turkey, and it will still be on the side opposing to the US. Turkey won't have an obligation to let the US go inside the Black Sea. But I think the most important thing in this debate, and that is what Victor brings you, is we give you immediate impact on what happens if Turkey leaves NATO. He gives you a security reason, like the Black Sea in Ukraine and the fear of Russia invading Eastern Europe. He gives you the human rights reasons, and he actually, so in the end, what we got from first opposition were more general reasons, more like how do you say, more general reasons like intelligence reasons and human rights reasons, but we give you really the immediate impact that we really explain to you with examples what are the positive impacts of Turkey in NATO. And also another reason why it's not that bad morally, like the main thing that we got from first opposition on why it's like we shouldn't let Turkey be a player in NATO because it's a really bad country, is that we don't want our soldiers to be killed trying to protect Erdogan's crazy antics with other countries, but actually we could be in a war. Countries can be in war and still not get a single soldier killed. We don't have to send soldiers to Turkey or to other countries in order to protect Turkey. We can be in war with a country just by supporting it with weapons. Supporting like the opposing country with weapons. We can support Turkey with money. We don't have to send our actual soldiers and our actual people to protect it. And it's more easy to explain even to like the people that are voting for us why it is an important why we should support Turkey why we should waste money on Turkey for our gains. And it's way harder to explain soldiers, like you said, but we don't have to do it. So we can just give money to help our country succeed. And we also, what we got from Victor, which is very important, and we didn't get in this debate, is how really we can stop the actual ways we can stop Erdogan from doing crazy stuff, and how we can really help even the Turkish people inside Turkey just by economical pressure. That is something that we got only on our case. So for all these reasons, we actually win all the clashes. The human rights clash, the security clash, and all these clashes with these examples. And thank you.
Thank you very much for that fine speech and this debate. Overall, please exit this room.
Good, thanks.